Cirroc, I'm so excited to spend some more time with you. We last met San Diego Comic-Con 2019. We had a wonderful roundtable lunch. You, me, Aaron, Andrew, Ira. It was an incredible experience and one that I'll always remember. And
Right.
Aaron is absolutely missed.
Oh yeah, he's missed, but he's not forgotten, and we keep his memory alive. We keep his honor going forward as we celebrate him every time we can on the Seventh Rule podcast.
Absolutely. So I'd love to start off. What are your earliest memories of Star Trek prior to getting cast?
Earliest memory of Star Trek was the eerie theme song from the original series, just kind of freaking me out, which kind of made me stay away from the show. That's my earliest memory. Is that that's what I can remember. Didn't really watch the original series, but I did hear that soundtrack, and it was, a little bit frightening for me as a kid. So yeah.
Well, let's talk about DS9. What was the casting process like for you? Was it a quick one, or was it something that took a little bit longer? Just love to hear what that experience was like.
Oh yeah, it was several rounds of casting. So in the beginning it was a lot of kids in the room, and as you kind of move forward, it slowly gets down, and I finally got down to the last 3 kids, and I felt like I really knocked it out of the park on my last audition. My mom was with me. We were at the Paramount lot. And I remember in the final audition that Mr. Avery Brooks was in the room for that final read. And I auditioned with him in the room, the two of us reading the scenes together. And I remember the casting director were kind of winking at me, and when I walked out of the room, it was a kind of a sign that I might have gotten the job, or at least I did a good job. And and later on, with conversations with Avery, he revealed to me something I had forgotten, which is when I first met him in that audition room, I ran up to him and gave him a big hug and called him Dad. And I think that was one of the things that he liked as well. Plus, when I gave him a big hug, he could smell my cologne. So he's like, who's this 12-year-old kid wearing cologne?
Well, you had a very unique experience with Trek where you grew up on the set. And I would love to hear, from a production perspective, I love behind the scenes, what was the coolest set to be on as a kid?
The coolest set for me was the Promenade. The Promenade was like a shopping mall, playground, futuristic. It allowed your imagination to run kind of wild. It was so detailed, so many tiny details everywhere. 2 stories, it was. I had never seen a set like that. It was super realistic and felt like it was functional, like it could actually be open for business. So yeah, that set, and with the portholes looking out into space, with the space kind of backdrop of curtains, it just gave you the feeling of being on a space station. So that was the most impressive thing.
What drew you into the world of entertainment and acting in the first place?
I started doing plays when I was in 4th grade, and the reaction from the people that were watching those plays made me feel like I had some abilities, gave me some confidence, and then I got discovered by a photographer at the park who said, I should get an agent, and referred me to a representative agent for to go out on auditions and whatnot. And that was the beginning of my journey. I didn't say I want to grow up and be an actor. I kind of realized I was good at it, then got discovered, and then began the journey of going on auditions and getting jobs.
As far as the Seventh Rule podcast, you've been diving into the world of Trek now for quite a while.
Yeah.
What's been the most surprising piece that you didn't realize at the time or that has come from the podcast?
I think the most surprising piece for me now, watching these episodes and watching The Next Generation in particular, was how many of the people that I worked with that I didn't consider at the time had already been doing Star Trek. So when I started working with Michael Piller and Ira Bear and Colomini, I didn't realize that they had already been doing Star Trek. I thought it was their first gig like it was my first gig, right? So I didn't have this kind of perspective of, oh, these are the guys that do Star Trek, and this is their new iteration of it. I thought the new iteration was all new people, just like I was a new person. And so having that kind of perspective in hindsight, like, oh, so the directors I worked with, the Cliff Bowles and, you know, the Les Landaus and all of these guys that had directed episodes, I didn't realize that they had already been directing episodes, writing episodes, acting in a previous series. So I was surrounded with people that are well-versed in Star Trek, and I was not. And so now, in hindsight, watching The Next Generation, I realize that it wasn't their first rodeo, it was my first rodeo.